Hi, I'm Zendor, and yes, you have been expecting me. I'll be your guide, playing the devil's advocate as we peer into the depths of what keeps us afraid, angry, ignorant, and immobile. You draw your own conclusions. So many times, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And in today's world with so much misinformation keeping us apart, it really does matter how we interact with one another.
Namaste and in-law cats, and welcome to this episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and before we get going, I invite you to visit PlanetaryCitizens.net. There are several books available there that will ignite your spirit and soul. I guarantee it. So be kind to yourself. Go there, click the links. They're one-click downloads, no forms, no anything. So you're anonymous, you're safe. Just do it. Thanks so much. And I know you'll love the opportunity. This week's guest, I am so excited about speaking with Dr. Jude Currivan. I have followed her work for decades. She has stood at the meeting place of science, consciousness, cosmology, and ancient wisdom, exploring perhaps the most profound question that we could possibly ask. What if everything belongs together? Now, you can imagine the kind of apocalyptic chat we're going to have, so don't go away. We will be right back. Jude, it's so lovely to have you here. My heart is just full of gratitude.
Oh, Zen, it's my pleasure. It's my great pleasure. And knowing of your work and how we so co-weave our work in so many ways. So I'm really looking forward to us just exploring together. So thank
Sure.
you again.
And it's so wonderful. Here we are, masculine and feminine in body, although we may not carry that, we probably vacillate with that energy. And yet it's so wonderful. It occurred to me just before we came on, my wife's name is Luba. Lyubov in Russian, which is where she's
Yeah.
from. She grew
Yes.
up in what was Leningrad at the time,
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
came to the United States in 1990. We met in 2016. Serving love is what we're here for. So it's my honor and distinction to be able to serve that, because that's what my life has been about, is
Mhm.
serving love, serving truth, just as I know
Yes.
yours has. So
Mhm.
I'm, again, eternally grateful for that opportunity, right? So coming in, it's hard to bring relevant questions to you that are of a magnitude that you're capable of answering and sharing the wisdom of your journey. So let's start with, and as you know, we discussed the inner and the outer
Mhm.
perspectives of life, and when you got that, when did you first recognize that there was something inside of you that was connected to everything else?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. When I was 4 years old. When I was 4 years old.
Hmm.
And I've told this story quite often, but every time I tell it, I relive it in a way. I go back to that little 4-year-old me, and I relive the wonder of that moment when I was in my bedroom, and a discarnate light came in, about the size, I suppose, of a basketball, thereabouts. And I just heard a
Would we call
voice.
those orbs today?
Well, indeed, we would. We'd probably call them plasmoids,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, all of
Yeah,
that.
little spheres of
Um,
consciousness, right?
that's right. That's how it appeared. But what I realized was it was a vast intelligence that
Mm,
actually was in that was in that form, as it were. And
sure.
so I heard a voice, and I didn't hear it through my ears. I heard it in my inner sense,
I
and
can
it was
relate to
so.
that.
Well, I want to hear more about your journey in this way, because I don't know how you felt, and when you had that first moment, um, but it felt, I knew it. I knew it. It wasn't a stranger, and it was a kindness, and it was
Mm,
so loving. And it sort of invited me into what's become a lifelong journey and adventure of walking between worlds. Now, since the age of 4 until now, which has been 70 years, um, I've communicated, engaged with, participated in, learned from many, many different levels of sentience
mm,
in a multidimensional sentient universe. But from that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. I knew I belonged. I knew that love is fundamental and universal.
mhm.
And even though, like you and all of us, I had to go through my life journey, which has
Right. The
its
trials
ups
and
and its downs and
tribulations,
all.
right?
Exactly. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
come by hour. It wasn't, easy
yeah.
peasy in any
Well, and
way.
it's the tenacity of going, of the willingness
Yeah.
to be available to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost as though I could describe it that, you're in a really choppy sea, and the boat's doing this and jumping up and down, and you fall overboard, but you've got a life belt.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
float.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
I
float.
put it
You
a
can
little
find your
differently.
way.
I put it a little different, and you'll love this. We are all in relationships,
Oh, I love that. Of course.
buffeted on the ocean of emotion, seeking safe harbor.
Which I love, because that's the reason why I shared this story and that metaphor. Because again, in coherence, when we're communing in
Mm,
coherence, I'll pick up on what's coming through you. You'll pick up what's coming through me. It's like we're playing a song together. We're singing a song together.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a dance, right?
it's a dance.
And,
Yeah,
and we're both
that's
hearing
right.
the tune, the frequency, if you will. Speaking of that high-pitched frequency that's behind the silence, I found just we saw Disclosure Day
Yes, yes,
recently, right?
yeah,
Very end of that, the message,
yes,
listen.
yes.
Now, most people, I think, would think, oh, we got to listen with our ears better.
Mm-mm.
No, that's not what was meant.
Uh-uh.
You
No,
listen with your being.
totally. There's also something in that. The conversation before now, us, I was talking about exactly this point. And I differentiate between hearing and listening. And
Yes.
for me, it's about hearing, and that can be on every level. But listening is then, what do you do about it when you hear? Do you
Mm,
ignore it? Do you go some other direction? Or do you actually listen to what you're hearing and take it seriously? And like you, being able to have these wonderful messages and participations from the age of 4, and it's natural to all of us, so I'm not putting you and I in some
I
sort of special
totally agree.
box here.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's
for
available
whatever
for all of
reason,
us. We just
it's
choose not to
available for
listen.
us.
Right.
That's the point. And I think we also almost don't even be willing to hear, because the listening is then the steps after we hear.
Right.
I was guided many years ago to go on a series of journeys of inner and outer discovery. I heard that, but it was listening to it that got me out the door and taking the
Right.
first steps on what
Right.
became
Right.
a 7-year pilgrimage around the world. So that's the point. And I also, as you say, we hear in so many other ways. Synchronicities are another one. We can sort of hear synchronicities, but unless we actually say yes to them and show up for them and
Right.
follow the guidance they invite us into and the
Sure.
adventures they invite us into. For
Well,
me, that's why I was really taken by that word listen, as you say at the end, because it was, for me, it was more than just hear this. It was do something about it when you
right.
hear
Let it
this.
ripple.
Let it ripple. Yeah.
Now, in that rippling, you spoke just moments ago about the gradual ascension, if you will, for lack of a better, to full consciousness.
Mhm.
When I came back from my experience at 18, I knew we were all cosmic consciousness condensed into form, just unaware.
Yeah.
And so my life's been about, okay, how do we become aware, right? And it's more than just becoming aware. It seems as when you become aware, you step into that process
Mm.
and you release your attachment to the shore.
Yeah. And you can only reach another island if you do leave the one that,
Right,
you can't get to the next island by keeping on the shore of the old
right.
island. There's just
Now,
no way. There's no way through.
in noticing how others are,
Mhm.
especially after COVID, right?
Mm.
The world was triggered,
Mm.
and many think it was triggered towards succumbing to fear. I think it's the opposite. I think it was triggered to listen.
Yeah.
And
I
now,
do.
in that
I agree.
gradual process
Mm.
that you went through, that I've gone through, how did you reflect in that? And when did spirituality and science begin to merge?
It never didn't merge. I never saw them as somehow
Great.
separate.
Okay, so let's pretend for a moment. If it
Okay.
hadn't, what might appear to others to form that bridge or to offer that bridge that shows they're saying the same thing just differently?
I think well, yeah, okay. I think there's two aspects to this. For me personally, it was actually having an experienced, embodied sense of oneness, and
Mm,
oneness differentiated in multidimensionalities and vast diversities, and a journey of simplicities to complexities, but innately sentient throughout. And so for me, the deeper question was why is the world like this? And then the curiosity was then, how is it like this? Because what I
right.
was experiencing certainly wasn't what I was being taught in school. And so I wanted to understand, there's a beautiful, I don't know if you've ever been to the Sistine Chapel
No,
in Rome, but there's this
no. My wife
gorgeous,
has.
well, then ask her about this, because there's an amazing, iconic part of the chapel.
She
Um,
actually defected from Rome. She was
did
trained as a
she?
piano pedagogue in Mussorgsky College
Ah,
in Leningrad,
right.
was accompanying her choir in Rome for a week, and decided to defect.
Another metaphor, another connectivity. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely good for her. But it's the finger of God meeting the finger of Adam on the chapel
Yeah.
ceiling that Michelangelo depicted. And so for me, I wanted to understand that. I wanted to understand how the finger of God reached to my hand.
Mm.
And of course, very soon I was appreciating that I am a microcosm of God, as we all are. Everything in existence
Exactly.
is, everything is.
Exactly.
But I wanted to understand that how. And two really deep streams of wisdom were revealing the how of that. One was the ancient Indian tradition, the Vedic tradition of the Upanishads and the Vedas and the Gita. And what that was telling me, which I think Zen, to be honest, kept my sanity, because at the very young age of 6 or 7,
Well, it reflected my
it
own.
was
I
saying,
thought I was freaking nuts when I came back because everybody else thought I was. But in the
yeah, well, I didn't tell
Vedas,
anybody else. I didn't tell anybody else, because
oh, I was a
otherwise I
blabbermouth.
probably would have.
I had to share, right? I was, you know, and in that, because I'm a sister's feeler, I share that. And in the process of trying to figure out, looking through all the ancient texts to find corroboration of some kind,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
found it in the Vedas. And,
absolutely.
paraphrase, they basically say we're all divine threads incarnate connected to source capable of God consciousness.
Exactly right. And that mind and consciousness aren't what we have, they're what we in the whole world are. So that fundamental underpinning and framing was absolutely vital. But the how of it, the rest of the how of it, they obviously through yoga is sacred science,
It
embodied
is.
sacred science.
You know,
But
I
but
have to admit, I'm sorry for the interruption. I get
no, you're
theatrical
so
and I get prompt. I met my wife at her Kundalini yoga teacher training graduation.
see what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what's going on. Okay, do you want me to tell another story that you can actually say, I was there, I was there. Absolutely. But it was science.
So,
It was
yeah, share some of yours. I know you've had to have had them as equally profound.
Oh, there are too many to really share. And I've written about them. I've spoken in hundreds of podcasts. But I just wanted to make the point here because you asked me the question
Yeah.
about science and spirituality. And I think it's really important now because, first of all, I wanted to understand the howness of our universe in the physical plane, and
Mm,
science has really been really helpful in that regard, but it's been incomplete, it's been
mhm.
limited, and because its main focus has been taking stuff apart, it's
Yeah.
lost the wholeness in the
Well, it's
partedness of it.
destructive testing, right? Why would you want to
it
do that?
It is, but it's come full circle, Zen, because we've
Yeah.
now got the technologies that have come from this reductionist science that are letting us see out and in and all the rest of it. And it's coming full
Well, quantum
circle.
sciences, just the boon of, okay, not only is quantum computing multidimensional, it's a mirror like the LLMs, right? They have
Sure.
their own recursive function. Uh,
Exactly.
When are we going to become aware that we have our own? We always go inside to problem solve first.
E- Exactly. Exactly. So for me, it's not science per se that's problematic. It's the reductionist
Mhm.
focus that is, because, science is there to be able to replicate, to get some consensual understanding, to get the evidence, to be able to all of us come together and say, yes, the sun rises in the morning and this is why, and we are a planet that goes around our sun. So I think science has a big part to play, but it's not the whole of it by any
It comes
stretch.
from above our shoulders, right? And
Yeah,
as you mentioned,
yeah,
the indigenous traditions, the three
yeah,
brain, the gut, heart, and head, right? You feel things first in
exactly.
the gut. So this is where the operational capacity comes from. You distill it in the heart,
Absolutely.
and then you figure out what to do with it in your head. Well, science has
Absolutely.
been in that intellectual place, looking at the math and science, not the experience.
Exactly. Exactly. And now we're realizing, and I think this is why part of my work now is really this convergence that you
Mm,
mentioned, is there is the convergence because we've now got the evidence that is turning that old scientific paradigm that we came to by the mid 19th century of a mechanistic universe
mhm.
where consciousness was out of it wasn't even really part of it. It was a mechanistic universe. The reductionist method kept going and going and going.
Mhm.
And it was so
And
powerful
built
that,
on best practices
well,
in
that's
that
right.
power.
But that's right. But of course, what it did do is its technologies drove the Industrial Revolution. So it
Mhm.
became more than a scientific perspective. It became the perspective that pervaded everything we do with each other. So our
Right.
governance, our so-called healthcare, everything, economics, especially in finance, is exploitative, extractive, externalizing costs and harm. So
Yeah,
all of
part of
that,
the
even
evolution of a planetary civilization, right? And
indeed,
can we see it
indeed.
as that and not be judgmental toward it?
That's really important, I think, because what it did is it got us to where we are. It's brought us to a point where we do realize that we are each unique microcosms of
Mhm.
our universe as sentience. And at the same time, it's brought us to an unsustainable point where that journey of reductionism, mechanization, we can't continue. At the same time, that its
Right,
technologies are revealing that we are all interdependent expressions of a unitive reality. So
right.
it of itself is turning itself upside down and inside out,
Sure.
and that is
And
inevitably converging with wisdom, traditions, and teachings.
absolutely, it's the quest for truth, right?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
AI, has gone beyond the LLMs, which are not artificial intelligence. They're aggregated human data that's being queried, which is full of fallibility. Now, what about the deterministic autonomous AI that are being developed. For instance, one I'll reference that I've been involved in co-architecting,
Yeah.
the AI Universal Engine. It's designed to look at all these multidimensional layers, real-time value, real-time events, and then calculate a precise path forward, this VUCA proof, and then provide the handoff to the
Mm.
organizational leadership that's identified the friction points through the communication data that has the keywords of fear, distrust, all those kinds of things that create separation and what we
Sure,
call the
sure,
execution
sure.
chasm.
Yeah. I think this is wonderful work and really important and incredibly timely. I mean, I'm involved part of what I do in something similar. And just to sort of reflect on what you've just shared, you and I both know that LLMs and the sort of the AI that's moving beyond that, which is
Mhm.
generative AI, is basically trained on the mechanistic worldview, the reductionist worldview, and
Mhm.
therefore its choices have tend to be zero-sum choices, win-lose choices. And so colleagues of mine have really recently found a breakthrough to this. What they've done is they've created a game, an online game, which is not zero-sum win-lose, it is win-win-win.
Right.
And what's really interesting is they can measure the choices made by the AI in playing the game. And they
Mhm.
brought in ChatGPT and Claude and the others.
Right, right.
And what they found is that before playing the game, the level of coherence, if you want to, going back to your book and the work, and I'm very much working with coherence in that sense, is in the low 60%. So in other words, a large number of choices are win, lose, zero sum. But when they play the game, immediately, without any further nuancing, directioning, because they understand the consequences of the choices that the game offers them, that that percentage immediately jumps from 60s to 80s%. Because the reality is, as you and I both know, that with generative AI, if you're still working on a mechanistic worldview of
Right.
separation, we will never have the safe enough guardrails. We'll never do it. But if the actual AI is understanding, like teaching a child to
Yeah.
know when
Well,
it's making the wrong choices and the
I
consequence of those, then what we're finding already is that can really change things dramatically.
let me take that game to an Evo Leap level. That's what we designed in the AI Universal Engine. It
Yeah.
began through a 5-year conversation I had with the coder who had 30 years of AI development
Wow.
and global consulting at a systems level.
Right.
Our conversation began with how do we become aligned and coherent as a
Yeah.
globe, as a planetary civilization?
Yeah.
And so he was able to look at it from a coding perspective with,
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about multidimensional. There are so many layers in this thing, it's mind
Yes.
blowing. And yet, what it does, like you said, that 80% right
And
area,
that's without
well,
any further training, Zen. So this is
sure.
right at the beginning with one session of playing this win-win-win perspective game rather than a zero-sum game. Yeah.
So the what we found is that with the engine, it brings alignment
Yes,
and
exactly.
alliance and coherence to the organization. So it makes the choice based on the world data as to the
Yeah.
best path forward, then test it against 10,000 scenarios to
Hmm.
make sure that it is before the
Hmm.
handoff takes place.
Right.
Now, we've written co-authored a couple of books, the Velocity Mandate and the Aura of Two Minds that look at both the machine and the human aspects of it.
Hmm.
But what we found is that now coherence intelligence is replacing best practices.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it takes the old industrial age best practice reductionist view and
Was that
ascends
was
it.
that ever a best practice? Was that ever a best
Oh,
practice?
well, you and I both know that right. However, it was what
Indeed.
was in place. Like, I'd worked in the
Absolutely.
aerospace industry early in
Yeah.
my career, and it was a command and control area. A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
stuff got done,
Absolutely.
but people weren't happy, right? So how do you
Sure.
get people to be happy with what they're doing? Follow do what you
Yeah.
love, the
Yeah.
money will follow kind of motif. So now we're capable of doing that, and COVID was the door opening for it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing how coherent the universe is in its offerings to us to say, hey, psst, we're over here.
Totally, totally agree with you. And that's been my experience. But I know that in a way, for me, COVID was that opportunity, as you say. Do you fall into fear or do you leap into love?
Right.
And I think both were happening and both are still happening in that
Oh, sure.
regard.
Oh,
Um,
and I have to admit, we go through that. I don't know if you do, but
yeah.
there's still that intrepidation of, is this the right mode? Is this
Mm,
the right move? Is this the right
mm,
answer?
mm.
And how can I know?
And for me, coherence is the knowingness of that.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that I'm involved with is something called the science of unitive love or soul. And where coherence is absolutely, fundamental to that. And but coherence vibrationally, because you can get a very coherent mafia. You get
Oh,
very
yeah,
coherent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
So
can't
so we
think your
talk
way
about we
through a
talk about
system built, sorry, you can't think your way through a system built on vibration. You have to sense your way through it.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, the science side of it, tell me more, because there's another science that I have become aware of that came out of Russia that we've aligned with, and I know it's going to be congruent.
I'm sure it will be. I want to hear more about it. Well, first of all, so much of my work more recently has been on what I call unitive science, of
Hmm.
essentially a living, unitive, multidimensional, sentient universe. And so my last two books, The Cosmic Hologram and The Story of Gaia, are both the evidence basis for that perspective. And more recently, this year, the Club of Rome have invited me to write a discussion paper on the unitive science of a living universe as an invitation, as a discussion, showing the evidence and really coming to the point is if we see the world through the lens of wholeness rather than the lens of separation,
Right.
what then? What then? What then? And so the questions that raises and the invitations that
Well, it's looking
extends.
from the eye of one.
Of course, of course. And so soul came out of that because the unitive science of a living universe basically has love way beyond a sentiment. Love as a fundamental evolutionary principle of our universe, and coherence as that, part of that measure, part of that alignment with love. And I think that's where our work is very congruent.
Oh,
And
sure.
so, the work of soul, the work of that we're doing with WholeWorld-View and much else. I think it's times comes then because you're
Oh,
writing and working with so many of us are. And so
oh,
this
yeah.
convergence of science, spirituality, consciousness, indigenous, universal wisdom teachings,
Practical
traditions.
ways of implementing it.
Exactly that. Exactly
Now,
that.
I had a mentor way back when in the 80s. His
Hmm.
name was Obadiah Harris. He
I
was the
know that
dean.
name.
Obadiah was a dear friend. He was then he had a place that called the Temple of Truth, and he was the dean of continuing education at Arizona State University. And he
Yeah,
wrote a book called Unitive Spirituality. He was an
wonderful.
acolyte of Sri Aurobindo Ghose
Yeah.
and spent time in Pondicherry. Um, and we connected at, you can imagine the level.
Um, yeah,
And a gracious, I mean, talk about a wonderful mentor at that stage in my life.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
today, we've got that movement where we're all saying, okay, here's the coherence. And if we're listening,
Mhm.
we get the prompts from within, kind of like Redfield's third insight, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You let it well up from within. It has direction, it has energy, it has breadcrumbs in front of you for you to see, because it is that bridge of inner and outer
Mm,
that we're
mm.
experiencing now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how did you, how do you reference that and provide maybe some questions for others or ways to see it for themselves that are, become self-evident.
Mhm.
And that's with a big S.
Absolutely. I don't think there is one answer. I don't think one answer fits all. I think there are many, 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 many ways of opening up to this. And I
Right.
think that, when people say meet people where they're at, I suggest slightly differently. I say meet people a half a step of beyond where they're at. Because in my experience, if you meet them where they're at, they'll stay where they're at. But if
Exactly.
you actually,
Exactly.
but if you invite them into half a step, so it's a step they feel they can take, they can start to see it, they can start to feel the invitation and the
Mhm.
joy of that and the adventure
Sure.
of that. That's my experience. And so for my work, and obviously people at very, very, very different places of where they're at. So every opportunity, what I do, and I think this is where coherence is so vital, is the coherence that I feel in what I call the universal heart whether it's in a podcast or a 2000 conference auditorium or an
Mhm.
online or whatever it is. I tune myself to the field, to the communal overall level of coherence,
Right.
and then I invite it into a next step of
Sure.
that. So it's wherever
Um,
people are in that
If
experience
I
of
may
that
share some
particular. Yes.
evidentiary experience of
Yeah.
that too, you'll love this. So, of
Yeah.
all places, I met Barbara Marx Hubbard at Contact in the Desert in Joshua Tree. She would
Excellent.
have never, I talked with her during that time. We got a photo, and it was just a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
And I'd already supported, the Homus Universalis, or however she
Yeah.
put that. But she admitted that she would have never gone to a place like that. And a mutual friend of ours brought her there. I'm guessing for us to meet. We had lunch together, had a nice conversation. I started promoting her videos and having discussion groups around
Wonderful.
them here in Chandler. And then, so that was in 2013.
Hmm.
And then lo and behold, I ended up using the co-creation wheel as one of the core models for Planetary Citizens holistic model.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love the way it ripples. I mean, Barbara's a dear friend of mine. I mean, we spent quite a lot of time together. Whenever we could, we
Hmm.
spent time together. And yeah, I love her very dearly. I was in New Zealand when she passed over, and it was in the middle of the night, and her spirit came to me, and it was a very precious experience. So she was wonderful. I'm so glad you got to meet her and,
Right.
to
Now that's
take her.
evidence. Let me, people hear that, right? She came to me. There are no veils. We believe there are, so we create them.
Sure. And we close
Whether
our
you,
eyes, our ears, our hearts,
yeah, yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
is. And as you say, this is who we naturally are.
yeah.
This is who we naturally are. But we've not had, other than through spiritual traditions, we've not really had the science that's shown us why this is the way it works. And now we have.
Well, as a
You know.
scientist, what kind of questions did you ask that unveils that?
Well, in a way, I asked a lot of questions over a lot of years. And, when I went to Oxford to do my master's in physics, I specialise in quantum physics and cosmology, but I'd
Mhm.
been walking this path and reading, teaching. I was teaching quantum physics when I was 9 years old. So, it's been a long, long haul.
Well, it's not hard
Um,
to do because it's all experience
Yeah,
based.
exactly right. Exactly right. But what I've been amassing all my life is the ongoing and ever increasing and compelling evidence that brings it all together. So when I wrote the last couple of books, but in the discussion paper that the Club of Rome invited me to write, which is 7,000 words, it's like a long chapter in a book, I really summarized all the evidence. And there are 7 sort of key attributes of our universe that all interlock. The old Rubik's cube, you look. You need all of these attributes to be able to have an underpinning and framing, um, understanding of
Sure.
a
I see it
conscious
more of a
universe.
rubrics cube.
Oh, I like it. Well, that too, that too. And you know, ultimately and fundamentally, it's that universal consciousness is all pervasive. That is fundamental. But it
Yes, it
also
is.
requires, you know, meaningful information as its expression. It also requires the unitive nature of our universe, where there is no separation.
Hmm.
It also requires the holographic manifestation. So
We live
it's
in that.
exactly. So as you say, it's innately relational. So the paper sets out these seven attributes, and then it tells the story of our universe and us from its very first moment to now. And in that unitive narrative, that unitive perspective, it then says, this is the evidence we can stand on, that
Mm,
unity isn't an aspiration, it's our
right.
existential reality, meaning, and purpose, an evolutionary purpose. And now what? And
Well, you
now
made a
what?
short video earlier, and a friend of mine shared it with me in prep for me talking with you, and it's now featured on Planetary Citizens on our New
Oh,
Normal page
thank you.
because it's
Thank you.
exquisite. Why wouldn't I, right? There's so much to add. You know, we have an alliance page with 122 logos so far.
Fabulous.
And now
Well,
here's something.
do add whole worldview to that, please.
Okay, it may already be there.
If I
So
were to be there.
right, I can't remember all of them. However, bringing that up takes me back to that science comment that I wanted to share from earlier. So Leo
Yeah.
Samashko, who is the founder of the Gandhian Global Harmony Association out of St. Petersburg in 2005, he had a bunch of Russian scientists and a few others compile documentation scientifically that became what's called the perpetual peace science. And it
Okay.
starts with a new term that they created called spherons. Everything starts and ends in a sphere.
Hmm.
So that point of light that you and I are at the core of our being is a sphere. It ripples in and out with each breath and heartbeat. Now, we don't see or perceive that at the substrate level that it occurs, and yet it does. So this, again, echoes exactly what you were saying earlier. And the coherence created across those spheres of energy and interaction and capability of wholeness, they already are. You know, we just have to recognize that and act like it. Now, how do you?
This is the point, isn't it? We have to take it seriously. We have
Yeah,
to take it,
absolutely.
we have to take love seriously, all of this seriously, and
It's
then
an
act
action word. I
on
mean,
it.
come on.
It's an act. Yeah, exactly.
How do you see this rippling through humanity currently? And if you were to look at yourself and the environment even 3 to 5 years from now,
Hmm.
because with the advent of AI and the truncation of time frames for
Yeah.
getting stuff done, we can compress the time necessary to establish a new world order of
Hmm.
coherence,
Hmm.
right? I
Hmm.
used to call it harmony among people and planet. Now it doesn't need that, right? It's just coherence.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you see as the evidence that this rollout is actually happening that can give hope and inspiration to those who might not have it yet?
Okay. Well, first of all, like you, I'm sure I have many, many, many connection points globally with many different circles, with many different focuses and all the rest of it. And I would say indeed that this is happening. But I also, what I come back to is if we look at evolution throughout 13.8 billion years,
Hmm.
evolution's always progressed from simplicity to complexity through cooperation. Okay. But it's also evolved through what's often a breakdown and a breakthrough.
Oh yeah,
And
right.
when
Chaos
and
to
when
order,
sure,
right?
I'm not going to use chaos, but I'll use I'll
Well, that's the
basically
old phrasing.
It's the
And
old
thank you
phrasing.
for,
It's the old phrasing.
yeah, yeah,
But, what we know is that underpinning all the appearance of our universe are attractor basins of meaningful information that's part of the universal consciousness of which we're all a part. And
mhm,
that also applies to our collective psyche, as it were. So
right,
at the moment, the attractor basin of our collective psyche is sort of going round and round and round, just as the underpinning attractor basins of an ecosystem is, or weather is, or all of it.
sure,
Ours is especially complex. But what that attractor basin is, it's an attractor of consciousness, the level of our collective consciousness. And it seems to me that what happens when evolution occurs is that the old attractor can't hold anymore. And so it starts to break down. As it does so, another attractor that is more coherent and
hmm,
ultimately more complex begins to form in that consciousness field. And
sure,
then what happens is the two flicker. There's a phenomenon called flickering, whereas the old sort of flickers out and
right,
reaches to the new. But if there's not sufficient substance and crystallization and level of coherence in that new attractor, it'll come back. What I
sure,
think's happening, what I know is happening now is that flickering is getting stronger. And
hmm,
so the more and more folks who are willing and able to open up as you're describing and remember who we are. And that was why I did the film. That was why I did the discussion paper. That's why
right.
we're having this podcast from my perspective. The
Well, and it's
more
an
that
aspect of
flickering is strength,
fearlessness too,
it is, because it's that leap into love.
right?
The breakdown is the fall into fear. The flickering into the next level of coherent
Then there's a
potential
breakup
is leap into love. And then
with
there's a
the
break
relationship
up.
with fear, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what
Right.
I'm seeing is happening. So I'm seeing that across all sorts of the different communications, different groups, and the
Hmm.
languaging. I don't know about you. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but I hadn't heard, other than in our sort of work, the word coherence until relative. And so the more I hear it, the more I can use it as a sort of temperature gauge of what's happening. The more I
Well,
hear the
I've
word
heard
love.
incoherent my entire
Oh, I have
life.
too. I have too. But I'm hearing coherence now, and I'm hearing it as a way of coming together to move forward together.
Sure.
I'm hearing love being taken seriously and not
Right.
just as a sentiment.
Well, the
So
shifts in social
the shifts are
posting, I mean,
phenomenal.
Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok,
Absolutely.
you name
Yeah,
it, there's in
sure.
the last few years, there's been this explosion.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So at
And it
least
is,
now we're thinking about it. It's become a
yeah,
focus of attention
yeah,
with some intention. Now
yeah,
the interaction needs
yeah.
to catch up with it.
Absolutely right. And I think every time we can have a conversation, every time we can do something as an
Oh,
act of
yeah. Well,
kindness,
I
an
know
act of
as you do.
empathy.
This
Yeah,
conversation we're having, because of the level of congruence,
yeah,
coherence, and solidarity in it
yes,
is
yes.
going to ripple massively. And neither one of us know what's going to happen.
No, and it's not for us to know what's going to
No.
happen. All we have to do is show up and get out of the way.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the fun part, right? Just
Indeed.
get out of the way. I picked this up. I was talking about Neil and I having a similar background and being
Uh-huh.
drummers, right? So my favorite is being a progressive jazz rock drummer.
Hmm.
So the jams are conversations. You join it. You let go, like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi says in Flow, the
Yes,
psychology of
exactly.
optimal experience. It's like a jazz quartet
Yeah,
jamming. Egos go, time goes, everything goes except that moment. And you're fully immersed in it.
yeah,
And not just you yourself, your instruments there with you because it's part of you.
exactly. And you have to hear and listen.
Yeah.
You have to be able to, there's two aspects of
Well, I
that
don't
that
even
I
know they have
hope,
to do that. All you have to do is feel because that energy will take you wherever it needs you to go.
if you're willing to go.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you got to lose yourself first.
But that's the point I'm making. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
hearing
yeah.
and listening. And I think the other thing is that you've actually tuned your own instrument at least well enough. You don't have to be Mozart,
No,
but
no,
to
no,
have
not
an
at all.
instrument that's well, well tuned enough that you
Yeah.
can
Well, you got to
actually
have the
play
skill
as
set.
part of that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, this is
I
where
love
the
that metaphor.
coherence,
Mhm.
it's the
Yeah.
alignment of skill set, talent, and intention.
Yeah. And we all have it. We all
Yeah.
have the potential for it. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
So, where do we go from here? Right. Um, now, is the universe itself great? But the silly question started to ask, is the universe itself actually moving towards coherence? No, it's already there. We're just finally witnessing it and participating. Answer my own question. Sorry about that. So,
Please go ahead.
what would everyday life feel like for someone that is in the process of aligning their coherence?
I think when you say aligning with, I think that pathway, that journey, it's for me, it's a one-way street, but you can stop whenever you choose to stop. But if
Hmm.
you also, I would suggest that if you say yes to the ongoing invitation of the universe, that journey just deepens, widens, gets more adventurous, gets more exciting, gets more wonderful, because you start to open your eyes to what is truly unfolding before you. And as you say, Zen, it's not that you have any notion of what the destination might be,
And
but
yet it's
you're only
undeniable that you're a witness of it.
that's the point. So for me, it's about a tuning, going back to the music, it's a tuning and aligning with the evolutionary flow of the entire
Hmm.
universe. Because it is flowing. So
Sure.
it's us aligning and attuning, it seems to me, with
Now, what's
it.
that
Yeah.
feel like?
Mhm.
The word that came to mind for me was awe.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it came to mind for me, it came to heart for me. Because literally,
I
because
love
yes,
you. I love you.
but it is that,
Uh,
it is awe, it is wonder, it is joy, it is gratitude.
yeah.
It is that deeply felt. There's something called, I think, oh, I'm going to get this wrong now, Kamamuta, which means moved by love. It's a Sanskrit word, and I hope I've got it right, but it means moved by love. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
Just joyous.
Yeah. And that's what the combination of that being moved by love is in that space of awe that has no attachments.
No.
It's just, oh my God, right? This is so how whatever kind of descriptive words you want to use right. And because they're really, it's the ineffable
It
made
is
experiential.
exactly, and embodied, and
Yeah.
crucially, vitally embodied, so that it literally is every breath, every heartbeat, every step.
Okay,
We're
Sting.
embodying it. I know, I thought you'd get that.
Got it. Got it. I'm pretty
The
quick.
soundtrack started to play in my head when I was just saying
You wouldn't believe all the tunes and lyrics I got going on in my head during the conversations. And what do you pull out, right? Because frankly, from a neurodiverse perspective, which is finally coming to light, right? As well as the diversity that makes up this unitive
yeah,
spirituality and
yeah,
expression of humanity in
yeah,
our current time. There's all kinds of things that are available. Every one of us has
exactly,
them.
exactly,
And they're all
exactly.
reference points pointing back to the one.
Totally. And however I mean, it's what, for me, it's what makes my heart sing. And
Hmm.
music certainly does that. And you asked about the soundtrack. I was on a wonderful panel as part of an annual event called World Unity Week last Friday. And we had a panel on the science of unity of love, soul. And we really, in that panel, wanted folks to really feel it. And so the music that we chose was Leonard Cohen, Dance Me to the End of Love, and it was just wonderful. It was just absolutely wonderful. So I think music has a way, doesn't it, of
Well, it's the
because
language of the
music
soul,
is the language
right?
of soul, and it
This
is
is
coherence embodied, you know.
my wife, classically trained
Yeah,
pianist,
you
right?
said,
In the
yeah.
Russian tradition,
Mm,
which for those who are musicians and pianists or whatever, that you're aware of the discipline that the Russians
um,
instill and the
yeah,
expanse of their knowledge in doing so, right?
yeah,
So she was taught solfeggio tones at 5 years old
yeah,
and what their
absolutely.
purpose is.
Yes,
And so as a Piscean, right, she's faced with this vacillation of where that all fits. And because she is so free, she experiences and embodies that Piscean nature of both ends of the spectrum from time to time,
yeah.
all aspects of love.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I know a little bit about the Russian tradition on that one. It is extraordinary. But when you were sharing that about your wife, a dear friend of mine, Irvin Laszlo, has just passed over. And
Oh,
Irvin, yesterday, he passed
oh,
yesterday.
I,
Yes.
I interviewed him several years ago and his son Alex. Alex is on our
Alex,
board for Planetary Citizens,
it,
actually.
and Alex and I are friends and work together as well. But Irving passed yesterday, but as you know, he was a musical prodigy in Hungary when he was a tiny child. And
Yep.
what that really gave him is the understanding of universal coherence and patterns and whole systems, because he appreciated that what he was experiencing through his music applied to the whole universe.
Now, here's
And
a
I asked,
synchronicity. I haven't mentioned it yet. I know I mentioned to you that the gift of your presence here happens to be on my 69th birthday.
"I'm happy birthday."
My mother-in-law, who is 92, advanced dementia, I caretake her. Her birthday was yesterday.
Oh, yeah,
So she's still with us.
yeah.
Unfortunately, we keep hoping she'll make an easy transition because it's just, she's not there.
It's a hard path. I think for the family, perhaps often more than the person on that particular road.
Well, it's
It's a hard.
definitely caretaking for her has given me such a deep sense of
And
service.
yes, yes, I understand that wholly. I wholly do. But yeah, I just wanted to respond to what you were saying, because Irvin and I've written books together, and he wrote, the foreword to Cosmic Hologram, and we've
Oh,
played with
I
each
have to
other
laugh.
for so
Uh,
many years.
so in my interview, I thought, I like to share stuff and not necessarily to show my intelligence, but to look for congruence, right?
Yeah.
I'm often misunderstood that I'm trying to be competitive. I'm not trying to be competitive. I'm trying to share stuff so we can find what fits together.
Yes, what comes together. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And so in our conversation, I said, because we were looking at the number nine and all the different patterns associated with that. Solfeggio
Yeah,
tones, um,
yeah.
spiral dynamics, um, all of the multiplane awareness,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
triadic dimensional distinction vortical paradigm um, and so I'm asking it, I said, so in this, are there, we know from quantum physics that reality is 99% space and 1% material. And he stopped me right there. And he said,
You did.
I would say, well, you know how he would, right? I did it very politely and kindly. He said,
He's
I
very
would
kind.
say it's 100% energy.
And I
Can't
would
argue with
say,
that. I mean, how
no,
deeply does that
I
resonate?
would argue with him actually on that, because energy, matter, and space time are the appearance of our universe. He knew, he got to that point of realizing that they're not its fundamental nature. So I would say that our universe is 100% universal mind and consciousness expressed through digitized and meaningful information that
Mm,
is itself expressed as quantized energy matter and in a complementary way as entropic space-time. So
Right.
that's
And I
that's
would
where
offer that hydrogen is the conduit for that.
I don't necessarily think it's a conduit. I think it's part of it. It's part of the
Well, let me
manifestation of it.
explain how I see that. And maybe there's, and I agree, I'm still trying to work it out because I was taken across the universe back in 1989
Yeah.
and was introduced to three suns. My question was where the
I,
Trinity come
I
from.
remember you sharing that with Jeff. Yes.
So, the answer was they were not only my forefathers, they were the forefathers of our solar system.
Yeah.
And then a conversation with Edgar Mitchell later kind of edified even more of that. Well, when I began on the way back, took us 8 minutes to get there, 8 minutes to get back. So there was all kinds of thoughts in that space of
Yeah.
time.
Of course.
What I came to realize was that in the periodic table, it's tertiary models,
Sure. Sure.
right?
Sure.
Except hydrogen. So then what's missing? Is there something missing? Or
Hmm.
is there just something we're not seeing yet?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in the understanding that, okay, here's the macro of the Trinity, the micro is the proton, electron, and neutron. Consciousness is the space in between that aggregates everything into our perceptual capacity. So how would that happen? And then I look at, okay, hydrogen is the most plentiful gas in the universe, powers our sun. And oh, by the way, we have two weak hydrogen bonds for the AGTP
Sure.
configuration of our
Absolutely.
DNA.
Of
So with
course.
weak bonds, that means they're adaptable, they're flexible, they
Sure.
have
Sure.
wiggle room.
Sure.
That when we choose to elevate our consciousness, it also helps unlock the rest of those genetic codes that we're designed with that lead us to this universal experience.
Hmm. I
So
think
that's
that's
why
part. Yeah, I think that's part of
whether
it.
conduit may not be the right word.
I think it's the basic building block on atomic basis for it. And I really appreciate the tripartite. I think that's really important. I mean, the I Ching's nice on this because the I Ching says in the beginning is the one becomes two, the two become three, and from the three, 10,000 things are born. So that
Right.
Trinitarian perspective of that differentiation, I think is really fundamental. The other thing I would suggest is that look at the whole of the periodic table, because yes, of course, it starts with hydrogen, but interestingly enough, the primordial mix was not 100% hydrogen. It was 75% hydrogen and 25% helium. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason for that is that helium doesn't talk with anybody. Hydrogen's
Oh, it's got a very high pitch to it.
it's got a very high pitch to it,
Right.
but it's very neutral. But hydrogen will chat with anybody. But if you look at that primordial mix, Zen, it was vital because after several 100 million years, if that level of helium had not already been there in the mix before stars were formed, there's something called the triple alpha reaction. And that's where three helium nuclei combine to form a carbon nucleus. Now, the point of that,
Bingo. Bingo,
bingo,
the triple six, the number of man.
that's the point, but you don't get to that. It's incredibly resonant. It has to be an incredibly coherent
Mhm.
reaction. It takes place very, very rapidly in quantum terms. And so if there wasn't all that 25% helium in the mix, there would not have been enough helium in stellar interiors to jump that threshold, and we would not be here. So
Sure.
that, but the
Well,
point I'm
everything's a
making,
bridge to another, right?
yeah, no,
Or,
you're not hearing me. You're not
okay,
hearing me. Okay.
I
I'm
listened.
saying that I'm trying to respond to you saying about hydrogen.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that you need to look at the whole story here, and everything is part of a unitive universe. So hydrogen is the simplest, and all of the bonds you're talking about, hydrogen's vital throughout the whole story of our universe.
Hmm.
But what I'm saying is you do need every other aspect
Oh, I
to
totally
come into
agree.
play.
Totally agree.
And
I
that
understand. I've just got a singular perspective on what I've got so far.
okay. You might like to read then the story of Gaia because it tells that story beginning with hydrogen and helium and being able to journey all the way through to us in complexity. You might get something in there because
Oh, I'm sure I
in what
will, because most of everything that I've done has just been through my own experience, my own
yeah,
curiosity, and what's been revealed. Now I'm
yeah.
in the process of, okay, did I get it? Right? And reflecting with people like you.
I'm sure you have got a heck of a lot. I'm just suggesting to you that if you read that, you'll also understand why phosphorus is. You'll understand why chinops, you know, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus and sulfur are vital because
Hmm.
their harmonics, their coherence as elemental relationality enables so much more in terms of development of
I love
complexity.
getting down to the atomic level of stuff and looking at it. I really do. And it's
Yeah,
rare that
a
I
lot of
have the
fun.
opportunity to have someone with your acumen to do so,
It's a
uh,
lot of
and,
fun. It's a
and
lot of fun.
reflect. And I never take those things as any kind of blowback or criticism or
Oh
anything,
no, no,
because I
it's
know
absolutely
you
not.
and you want to help me grow too.
That's what we do for each other. But I reflected back on what you said about 666, which of course is carbon. And I
Hmm.
just wanted to mention this triple alpha because that really for me explained why the original mix was not 100% hydrogen. It
Hmm.
needed to be that 75-25. And then
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I
was
didn't
able
mean
to,
to intimate that that's what I was trying to put forth.
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
it's an
fine.
integral part of it. Like you said,
Yeah.
how does it all fit together, right? Because it
And
all does.
we're still, this is such a work in progress for all of us.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I just love it at this exciting time when we, as you say, we're waking up to remember who we are. And as the film said, a radical guide to reality. And thank you so much for putting that on the website. But that ends with and who we can consciously evolve to become. And
Absolutely.
it's spoken by a 14-year-old, who knows that they belong, which is great.
Absolutely. I know you have a hard stop here soon.
I do. I do.
Um, Advice for our listeners. If you could offer a tasty tidbit for them to ingest, digest, and expand their own lives with, what might that be?
Well, first of all, if anyone wants to reach out to wholeworld-view.org, there's a lot of invitations there. There's a lot of awe. There's a lot of, explorations there, adventures there. So that's to one side. But, we're really great at complicating things, aren't we? And you said earlier, and this is what I'd come back to at the end of our conversation today. I'd invite people to choose love, to choose love.
That's as simple as it gets.
It's as simple as it gets, and I never say it's easy. But it is the foundation to who we are and how we can be. And whether that's a kind word, a kind thought, a kind action, an act of generosity, because when we choose love, we choose joy, we choose gratitude,
Mhm.
we choose coherence. We choose to be a jazz drum player.
It's natural order, right?
It is
We're
natural
just
and universal law.
acquiescing to it.
Exactly. And aligning with it and partnering with it and participating in it and dancing with it.
Jude, thank you so much for joining me today. You've been so gracious. Your wisdom just ripples, and it's made me a better man as a result, too. So I thank you for that. Um, would you
Thank you,
like
Zen.
a closing word?
I think I just did.
Yeah,
Gratitude.
okay.
Thank you for everything you're doing because you embody the courage of following your heart and being able to do this work and to share it with the many folks that you do is such a gift of service. And at this time, it is absolutely vital. So thank you so much.
Uh, Where's my heart? Um, it's just me. I don't know any other way to be, right? It's
It's
just
all you need to be.
being, right?
It's all you need to be. It's all you need to be.
Exactly. Thank you again, and namaste and in lock
Namaste.
catch. And thank you for sticking with us for this expansive apocalyptic chat. And please do like, subscribe, share, make comments, ask questions, whether in the comments or of yourself. Just ask questions. That's how you'll grow too. So thanks again for sticking with us. Stop by planetarycitizens.net and pick up your free books, and the information for Jude will be below the description in this video. And I thank you once again. Gratitude, 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 and I'll see you next time.
In a world racing forward, clarity wins. The AI Universal Engine unites human wisdom with machine precision to cut through fragmentation, reduce decision latency, and turn strategy into coherent action. Lead with confidence, decide with precision, step into the future, where two minds create one intelligent enterprise.